Good morning. It's Thursday, January 16 at about 10:15. I've had a good week. It went as planned. On Monday, I went to a house event put on by Tom Steyer. It was very pleasant. It was a very comfortable house, gracious host and hostess, wine, beer, cookies for a small crowd. There were lots of television cameras there, but I would say the crowd itself was in the neighborhood of 40 to 60 people. I couldn't really see who was standing in the kitchen. I got in early as press, got a great seat, and captured it all. Not only using this vlogging camera, but I set up a GoPro on a bookcase and got it all from the side, too. Undoubtedly, you'll be subjected to that footage. But I enjoyed the event very much. I would say at this point it's my favorite political event in Iowa, perhaps tied with Elizabeth Warren at Stevens Auditorium at Iowa State back in October. On Tuesday, I went up to Ames, Iowa, home of Iowa State, and videotaped Andrew Yang. I had just seen Andrew in Tipton and put up a pair of videos about that trip. So why did I go again? Well, I like Andrew Yang. He has interesting and unconventional things to say. And to my pleasure, he decided to make Ames the first experiment with a slideshow. Now, that meant that the lighting overall wasn't that good, but the slideshow was something he wanted to do. Again, I was able to get good GoPro footage from the side, and I captured the slideshow and everything that he said with this vlogging camera. I already have a video up of the slideshow, and I'll link it at the end of this video. There will also be a question and answer video by Andrew in Ames. And then yesterday, Wednesday, the day after the presidential debate on Tuesday, I drove to Toledo, Iowa, possibly Tama, T-A-M-A, Iowa, to see Mayor Pete in the bush. We had to follow a gravel road for 1.5 miles, and then we ended up in a nature conservatory building that was quite nice. Lots of stuffed animal heads around, and Mayor Pete addressed a full house that was 100 to 150 people, hard to guess. Mayor Pete had 4 events yesterday. Toledo, or Tama, was the second of the 4. It was supposed to start at 2. I recall looking at my watch at 2:15. It had not started. He did, however, end it at 3, which apparently gave him an hour to get to his next location. I've been asked for comments on the 6th National Democratic Debate, which was held in Des Moines. I was asked beforehand if I was going to be attended, and I entered my name in the national lottery for the Democratic National Committee and was not selected, which is not a surprise. And I only entered my name after I was asked if I was going to attend. In all honesty, I had no desire to attend. When you can see a candidate like Mayor Pete with a crowd of maybe 150 people, you can see Tom Steyer with a crowd of 40 or 50 people, you can see Joe Biden with a crowd of 200 or 250 people or less. Seeing all of them up on a stage in an artificial setting, which isn't like being president of the United States, has no real attraction to me. Nonetheless, I did watch the debate. I've seen the entire thing. Some of it on the big screen TV, some of it on my desktop computer. I think the only thing I can contribute is to compare the reality of the candidate as seen in Iowa with the appearance of the candidate on the national debate. So let me take them from the center. Joe Biden actually has the largest delta, the largest difference between what he's like in person and how he does in a debate. He holds his own, but he stumbles around a fair amount. That's not age. I've read that he's had a stutter. I can see the wheels turning in his head. I know what he wants to say. He does eventually say it. It's not as smooth as a television commercial actor would be selling you a Chevrolet. I thought after the first debate that Joe Biden was too old to be president. having seen him twice, and I hope to see him again this weekend, or certainly before the caucuses, I don't think he's too old at all. The man has a giant heart. I watched his eulogy for Senator McCain on YouTube, and pretty much made me cry. The two of them were close friends, and Joe Biden supports the McCain Institute. So I wish he did better in the debates, but I don't think he does badly. And if people properly measure experience and heart, he'll be fine. Bernie Sanders came off as more mellow in the debate than he does in person. That was a surprise. He's kind of a curmudgeon here in Iowa. I've only seen him with AOC in Iowa City, the home of the University of Iowa, and he was kind of a firebrand at that. AOC had more radical things to say, but she said them in a kinder way. Bernie's kind of like pounding his fist and just Bernie's being Bernie. At the debate, he was more mellow than expected. Elizabeth Warren did better than I expected. In fact, I thought she did very well. I'm annoyed with her because I've heard her 37-minute stump speech, parts or all of it, 3 times, and I just went up to Mason City to hear her condensed stump speech, and she did shorten it, but then she didn't do any better in answering the questions and answers. She would insert some of the deleted stump speech into the questions and answers. But in the debate, I thought she did well. Obviously, her line about none of the women up here haven't lost in the elections went over well, and I already knew that was true. She came across as more nimble, and perhaps she is. Perhaps this Iowa caucus adventure is mind-numbing to her, or boring. She doesn't seem to be bored. She seems like a very nice person, but the intellectual content coming from her is not stimulating. Mayor Pete, when I saw him on the big screen, compared to the other 5 participants, he looked like a kid. He just did. And I'm not saying his haircut was wrong or his makeup was wrong. The fact is, he is a kid. I enjoyed listening to him in Toledo yesterday. I went there to hear him. He's a good speaker. He answers questions concisely. He does answer the question. But every now and then the thought comes to me, why is this man running for president? He's been mayor of South Bend, Indiana, the home of Notre Dame. Why does that qualify him to be president? I'm glad he's in the race. He's, if not elevating the conversation, certainly adding to it. How did he do? Fine. He wasn't attacked like he was at the previous debate because he's no longer the front runner. And my perception here in Iowa is, at this point, still 2.5 weeks before the caucuses, he is on a downward curve. That doesn't mean he can't turn it around, and he has a very good field organization. In fact, I'm dictating this in the conference room now at about 11 o'clock or 11:15 because they'll be in here tonight and they do some setup before they work. Amy Klobuchar did fine. She had this tendency to run long on her questions, and that's not a real Midwestern thing to do. Midwesterners are nice and they're polite, and she seemed to run over on every single question. This might be the right place to add that I didn't care for the moderators. I especially disliked Wolf Blitzer. His ego's too large for his role in life. For some of these young cub interviewers to be interrupting people of the stature of these candidates rudely is off-putting. Amy has won every election she's been in. She is a Midwestern person. She will add to any ticket, which includes an Easterner or a Westerner. I thought she did fine. Her makeup was a little off. Why am I commenting on that? Well, same reason I commented that Mayor Pete looked young. Tom Steyer. Tom did well. He seemed to be striving to come across as a nice guy. This is not difficult for him because I think he is a nice guy. He's not as nice a guy as Andrew Yang is, but he's a nice guy. He's done excellent work. It was a revelation for me to meet his wife at the House event the night before the debate. He also had his daughter there, and it's possible that several of his sons were there too. Only his daughter was introduced. I did not like his closing, which was, "I honor my teammates, the American people are my teammate." He used that closing at the House event the night before, and I didn't like it then, and I particularly didn't like it in the national debate. I think a closing more along the new TV ad I just saw, which said Donald Trump is a fraud, he's not a billionaire, he takes money from his supposed charitable organization, he doesn't file tax returns, etc., and I, Tom Steyer, am a billionaire. I think that was a more direct, hard-hitting way to close, and I hope Tom gets over his reluctance, his reticence to explain the good deeds that he's done. Not only him, but he and his wife. They've done an exceptional job. I did like the fact that that TV commercial mentioned that he and his wife had taken the giving pledge to give away over half of their assets during their lifetime. Andrew Yang wasn't on the stage, and he should have been. He just should have been. He brings fresh air and new ideas to this campaign, and he raised plenty of money. He polled over the limits in Iowa. He polls over the limits nationally. The Democratic National Committee should not be filtering out the Andrew Yangs of the world. I missed him on the stage. I enjoyed hearing him Tuesday at 11 a.m. in Ames, Iowa. And I see that YouTube is playing a long interview by Stephen Colbert of Andrew Yang on Tuesday night. Or perhaps it was Wednesday night. I don't know which night it was, but I commend that to you. So what have I added from the Iowa perspective to what you were able to perceive in the national debates? Mainly that Joe Biden is not too old. He is hitting 100% in person. He's a kind and charming man, and he's not a doddering old person. Elizabeth Warren is less nimble than she came across in the debate. Bernie's more grouchy than he came across in the debate. Mayor Pete came across 100%. He's just Mayor Pete, no change. Amy Klobuchar, it's regrettable that her tendency to run long was off-putting because she's not an off-putting person. She's highly competent. And frankly, the day could come when people are looking at her as the front runner, not as a vice presidential candidate. She's an eminently competent person who's unruffled, unflappable. That's good. And Tom Steyer, still hitting his stride. He's not as well known as he should be. He deserves to be better known. His main campaign thrust is that Donald Trump can beat any conventional candidate. I don't happen to agree with that, but I understand that that's his campaign thrust. And then he goes on to say, and I'm an unconventional candidate. I'm a billionaire who can put Donald Trump in his place. And I'm a billionaire who's done good work, all of which is true. I hope he doesn't go too far out on the plank with that, because we may end up with a conventional candidate. We may end up with a Biden-Klobuchar ticket. I do know that Steyer would support that wholeheartedly, even financially if necessary. Steyer's a real candidate. It wouldn't wholly surprise me if he's back 4 years from now. Well, if any of this helped, I'm glad. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you like this political content, please consider subscribing.